Welcome back to In a Tiny Garden. Today we'll be taking some of the seedlings that have germinated and putting them in my lean-to cold frame. And we'll also be pricking out some of those seedlings, including lettuce. And then we'll also be sowing some new seed, including brassicas and some herbs. So let's get started. I put the lettuce seedlings in the cold frame as soon as they germinated, as they're hardy. One variety had zero germination, but that's because the seeds were really old, from 2016 or 17. I also ensure I water the seed tray fully before pricking them out, as the roots will slide out so much easier without breaking. So I just sit the tray in some water until the top of the compost is moist. That's kind of better than overhead watering, but you can do it either way. This is basically the only watering I did since watering the seed tray before sowing. So I'm just using a 60 cell seed tray that Charles Dowding actually designed, but are currently out of stock. They are perfect for lettuce seedlings as they've got a big drainage hole in the bottom. And to prevent any compost falling out, you just need to give them a gentle press down. And once there's a root ball, they are very easy to remove, especially because of the big hole at the bottom. So I've just got the lettuce seedling tray inside now just to prick them out at the dining table, but they'll go right back out in the cold frame afterwards. I start by levering the seedling out really gently. I use a chopstick, but you can use a pencil. Go right to the bottom of the tray before starting to lever up. If you break a root, you should be able to hear a little pop sound, but it should slide out easily. Just don't tug it. And always hold the seeds by their true leaves, not their stems. If the leaf gets a bit damaged, it's fine, but if the stem does, it's sort of game over. This is because a plant can grow new leaves easily, but it cannot regrow a new stem. So you can coil the root around a little in the bottom of the module, but not the stem. So I plant right up to the seed leaves, and this produces a nice strong seedling. You can't do this with all seedlings, but with lettuce it's fine. I don't wait for any true leaves to appear for lettuce seedlings. It's much easier after just a week of growth to prick them out. I've tried it both ways, and this way is so much easier. So now you're going to see me doing loads of pricking out. I feel like the full speed normal version of this should be some sort of meditation video, or at least it would definitely send somebody to sleep. But maybe it's satisfying for you? I don't know, let me know. I'll try and maybe make the video a little bit shorter next time. So again, lots of different varieties of lettuce I've sown for a nice colorful salad bowl. I'm writing on the pot instead of using more plant labels there, just in case I want to prick out more later. But and then after I prick out the lettuce seedlings, I'll grow these ones in the tray and eat them as microgreens. And then once they're eaten, I'll put the compost they grew in on the compost heap. Loads more time lapse. Could have cut this shorter. I think you probably get the picture. So I'm growing Marvel of Four Seasons. I just finished there. I'm doing that one now, but you can also plant that one over winter. So really, I'm planning to have salad leaves all through the year. And then the last one just coiling in there. And then having a little bite of the last one there. And then I'm just tucking them back in again and giving them a little bang on the table just to settle the compost back down. Because again, it would be nice if these ones could grow on to at least microgreen size, or I might decide to prick more out and give them to some allotment neighbors. So there's the last one. And then out this tray will go to the cold frame, where they'll stay until they're big enough to plant out at the allotment, which I'll film in about 7 weeks' time. They don't need much watering, but it's good to just check, especially on some of the sunny, hot days we've been getting, just to check the compost hasn't completely dried out. Cheeky early taste of ones that were overcrowded. So the Marigold and Cosmos germinated really quickly inside and got away on me a bit. So I'm going to pot them up individually and then pop them in the cold frame. The wild strawberries take longer to germinate, so I'll leave those to grow on in this tray and bring it back inside till they're bigger. So let's start pricking these out. So same sort of method for the lettuce, but I don't put them quite as far down into the compost. So these are the marigolds, which will be great for my beneficial insects. Oh, the roots are so big after one week. The modules I'm planting into are slightly bigger than the ones I just used for lettuce, but I still would have liked to have used slightly bigger ones, but I don't have any spare. But I know somebody at the allotment who stockpiles their flimsy plastic containers, so I might go and investigate and see what I can find to use. Again, I just give it a little firm down. Same thing, lever up from the bottom, and it should pull up easily. Don't tug it. And again, holding it by the seed leaves. So you can just see the true leaf. I'm holding it by a seed leaf, but you can just see the true leaf just starting to pop up there between the two seed leaves. So that one will look like an actual marigold leaf when it comes up. And I'll be planting these out at the allotment as companion plants. And then here's the Cosmos. And I'm pricking out the two varieties. Antiquity I grew last year, and then Apricot Lemonade. And these really, ideally I would have planted them in slightly bigger pots, but the ones that I had that were big, the sort of size up from these were too big, so I didn't want to swamp the roots either. So you don't ever want to plant into something that's too big for the seed because they could rot, the roots could rot because they can't take up enough of the moisture in the compost. So the compost is basically just cold and wet around the roots constantly instead of being able to sort of dry out a bit in between. So these are Cosmos, again, beneficial for the veg plot, but also for cutting and bringing inside as cut flowers. So these are the radish, and you can see they've been bending towards the sun, so I'll rotate these the other way around when I put them back in the cold frame. And I'm just pricking out one of each variety, and the rest I'll use for microgreens and also to plant out in clumps at the allotment. So these germinated really quickly, and I didn't quite get them out in the cold frame in time, so they grew a little bit leggy, but you can actually plant them a bit deeper in the soil. But again, these modules are quite tiny. I'm just sort of using up the last last row, really. And then I take them out to the cold frame. But I forgot to water the tray. So give the tray a good water, especially as the Cosmos roots were so big, so they'll dry out much quicker. So you do need to keep an eye on these if you're using something as tiny as I have. So these are the sweet peas. I've had okay germination, 2 of which did not germinate, but they're quite well known for not germinating. And here I've decided to pick accidentally my peas for peas instead of my peas for shoots. So yes, it was tasty, but ideally I wouldn't have picked that one. And then these are the spinach we sowed last week, so not too much growth on them yet. The beetroot Detroit are way ahead of the beetroot Bolthardy, but again, the main beetroot season of sowing is yet to come. And then those are my peas for shoots, so they'll all get planted out at the allotment in a couple weeks. So now I'm just going to be filling up trays for sowing the first of my Brassicas. So I'm mixing multi-purpose again like I did last week with some vermiculite just to open it up. And same thing again, I am sieving the top layer so it's much finer for the top of the seedlings. And then you're just using multi-purpose mix with the vermiculite in the bottom. So you overfill the trays, and then this ensures that there's no pockets and it's all level, especially as Brassica seeds notoriously like to roll around because they're sort of perfect little circles. And then I sort of cut off the top using a sawing motion-ish, and then tamp it down slightly. And then that just means there's a nice firm-ish compost for the roots to get down into, rather than kind of light and fluffy where they can't kind of find their feet, if that makes sense. And then I'm using the sieved compost on the top. If you used a seed compost or coir, then you wouldn't really have to do this faff. And you could try multi-purpose just on its own, but just pick out the big bits. But I'm being extra cautious this year because I want these seedlings to succeed, especially as I'm filming it. I'm going to give it another little tamp down. I love this method of storing my seeds. It's totally revolutionized it in the last couple of years. I don't forget to sow things anymore. So first up, I'm sowing some early Romanesco seeds, which are so beautiful and delicious. So look up Romanesco if you don't know what they look like. It's like a perfect Fibonacci circle. And I'm going to be sowing about 1 centimeter down, so I just marked it on that little label, but you don't really need to be that precise. So yeah, these veg are like a light green color, and they taste a bit like cauliflower, but I actually prefer the flavor. They're just so gorgeous, and they're a bit difficult to grow, so possibly not for a beginner, but who knows? You could give it a try if you wanted to. So like I said, making a little hole like this I find easier since I'm sowing so many varieties into one tray, because they don't roll around as easily if you've made a little divot. But I've done 2 rows, one kind of more on the top and then one on the bottom. So I will fill it with a bit more compost after, but you could just make like a divot like I'm doing. And that's the early Romanesco. Next up are the Cauliflower Purple of Sicily, which I grew last year, and they were a huge success. They were tasty, but also just so pretty. So it's just so fun to grow something that you can't find in the grocery store. It's just such a lovely experience. You can see the picture there. Mine were actually more purple than on that picture. So they taste like a regular cauliflower basically, and when you cook them, most of the purple goes away, but still, it's pretty fun. So this looks quite fiddly. If you were just growing one type of Brassica, you can just scatter the seeds lightly over the surface, which is a lot easier. But again, I gotta save space. My Kohl frame's tiny, and so is the area that I have of a windowsill. So this is how I cram so many things in, really. Lots of different varieties to try. And again, I'm not really sure why I'm doing this, but I'm making a divot and then also doing some surface sown ones that I'll push into the soil a bit. And then finally, next are the Rabi Purple Vienna. So I do like these sliced in a kind of vinaigrette salad. I brought them to a barbecue pre-COVID, and they were lovely, crunchy, like a refreshing kind of side to the barbecue food. So I really like them. They're more mild than a radish, which I'm not a huge fan of the flavor of. So yes, I do like kohlrabi. But you need to harvest them when they're young, because if you let them go too old, they get really hard and basically mostly only useful as kicking around the allotment as a kind of like a ball. Anyway, yes. So all the brassicas I sow to the same-ish depth. Like I said, either making this mini drill, or you could just put them in, push them in, or put them on the surface and then cover it with kind of a centimeter of compost. Kohlrabi are also quite small, so I'll be growing more of them. I'll be repeat sowing those, unlike some of these other varieties like the Calabrese, which I actually forgot to sow last year somehow. Broccoli is what people mistake. It's actually called Calabrese. True broccoli is actually purple sprouting broccoli. Oh, sorry, I got those confused. I just sowed the purple sprouting broccoli, and this one is the Calabrese, which is not actually broccoli, but it's what people call broccoli that you see in the grocery store. So, yes, it's actually Calabrese, or Calabrese. And that is what I forgot to sow last year. The purple sprouting broccoli is about to sprout at the allotment. I'm becoming very impatient, but it's such a good spring treat in the kind of hungry gap that we call. So the hungry gap is when not much is growing, which is around now, early spring. So purple sprouting broccoli are really good for that, but they take a really long time to grow in the ground, so you have to have space. And then I'm going to sow quite a few herbs today. I'm trying 2 new varieties of parsley, a curly-leaved one and a perennial type. But I'm also going to be sowing my old favorite, the flat-leaf parsley. Then a summer savory, a winter savory, and attempting to germinate these perennial Welsh onions that with quite old seed, and then 3 varieties of dill. Yes, I love parsley so much in cooking, so I sow it every year, and the ones I sowed last year are actually still producing lovely green leaves for me, some of which I picked today. So this first one is the curly leaf parsley, which in Latin is Petroselinum crispum. And I haven't actually grown this one from seed. I normally only grow flat leaf parsley. I love the seeds though. I want to look at them under a microscope. Seeds are so detailed up close. So I'm sowing fairly thinly. And something to note is parsley takes absolutely forever to germinate, so don't give up on it. Just kind of let it sit there and forget about it with a cover on. Hopefully it doesn't dry out. And then the next one is the flat leaf parsley, which in Latin is Petroselinum crispum neapolitanum. Excuse my pronunciation. And then the last one, again, growing this one for the first time, it's a perennial parsley, Japanese parsley mitsuba, and in Latin it's Cryptotania japonica. So apparently the flowers, stems, leaves, and roots are all edible. So you can use it in multiple ways. I'm going to be honest, I sowed these last year and then completely forgot about them. So I haven't actually tasted these yet. And I do hope they germinate. Not sure how long parsley seeds are viable for actually, but these are only a year or 2 old. 2 years old. So we'll see. But again, they take a really long time to germinate, so just, kind of try and forget about them, but make sure there's a lid on so they stay moist. I don't tamp them down, but I put a layer of vermiculite over top, just a thin layer. These are mostly kind of surface sown, so you barely need anything on top. And then I use a upturned rose for watering, which should have even gentler watering rather than when your rose is turned downwards. But again, like I said last week, my rose needs replacing. It's dented and it's not very great. You can actually just poke holes in a water bottle and apparently it comes out much easier, but I don't have a plastic water bottle to try it with. So then I'll put these in the heated propagator until they germinate, which will be a long time. And then sort of mid-spring, mid-summer, I'll be planting them out. So this is Welsh onion. which is a perennial, hardy perennial. And again, I'll be honest, I sowed these last year. I did get germination, and then I failed to plant them out. I forgot about them. Don't ask me how, because I was really excited for these. So this year I'm determined. In Latin, they're called Allium fistulosum. So those are the little black seeds, which look like onion seeds. So these are a bit old, but the packet says that I can use them till 2021, so they should be fine. They take a while to germinate, so we'll see. And these ones will need to be covered in perlite, but the ones next to them don't, so bear with me. I'm going to just cover half of them in perlite, and then the other ones, the summer and winter savory, I won't. I tamp them down slightly just to make sure they have good contact with the soil. Don't really need to do that. And then, yeah, there's a layer of vermiculite over top. And then early summer, I'll be sowing these, transplanting these outside. And then these are the teeny tiny seeds of winter and summer savory. So I'll just sprinkle these both on the surface. Summer savory is an annual. Saturasia hortensis, and then the winter savory is a hardy partial evergreen shrub, so perennial, and that one's Saturasia montana. So they both have slightly different flavors, but they both go well with bean dishes, to flavor bean dishes. And growing herbs like this from seed, parsley, definitely try, but growing herbs like this from seed is quite difficult and kind of labor intensive. So maybe not one for a beginner, but yes, I put the lid on and then I'm going to put them in the heated propagator. And then the dill. So I'm sowing 3 types of dill, one of which the seeds are really old, and I can already tell you that they haven't germinated since by the time I edited this video. And then the one that didn't germinate is the Marigold one. But they're all in Latin Anthem graveolens, all the types of dill. So this one is just like a bog standard dill, which I really like the flavor of, but I know it's a kind of love it or hate it herb. I went to a friend's house and she put it in a lovely green salad on the side of a roast, and I fell in love with it. And I try and have it on nearly every salad I have now. I don't know, it just adds something to salad. Before I would have thought fish or something like that, but yes, super lovely in a salad, I think. And then a bouquet, which was actually sent to me for free with because I bought so many seeds from that company. So I'm not sure exactly what the difference is. I think maybe the bouquet one looks like maybe you can use it as a cut flower, but I'll be trying to eat it. Yes, and then I give them a water. And then I won't be putting those on the heated propagator, but just near a windowsill as soon as they germinate. And then ideally they should go to the cold frame so they don't get too leggy. So I put the savory and perennial onion on the propagator with bottom heat to aid germination, along with the parsley, but not the brassicas. And as soon as they germinate, I'll put them outside in the cold frame as well. I turn the grow light off before bed every night and make sure that the cold frame door is closed because it gets quite cold at night still. I really hope that was helpful. Do let me know in the comments below, and I hope to see you next week.